everyone. I want to talk a bit about how to choose products that are going to be the most easily recycled. And the reason for that is that it's all very well to say, you know, try and recycle as many products as possible, but by the time you've bought it, it's a bit late. So I want to talk about the ways that you can tell how easy it's going to be for you to get something into the recycling stream. So the three main things are, one is, what materials is it made from? The second one is, how many different kinds of materials is it made from? And the third one is, where can it be recycled? So everything that you're looking at, if you think of those three things, that will help you work out what the end of life of that product might be. So if we look first at the most easily recycled materials, products, they're going to be products that are made from one kind of material and are easy to recycle at home. This basically means you can keep them out of a recycling or waste stream altogether, which of course is a bonus. Anything we don't have to put in our recycling bins doesn't need transport, doesn't need machinery to break it back to its original components. It can just be dealt with at home, and that's it. And if you're composting, it's going to enrich your soil as well. So examples of things that I will always choose first are, for example, for dishwashing, things that are vegetable fibres and wood, or coconut husk. They can easily coconut husk I would probably put on my compost. This one is not going to compost because it's got a big hunk of wood in it, but I wouldn't have any problem just burying it, or, you know, leaving it under a fruit tree and covering it up with pea straw, because it's just a piece of wood. It's going to provide habitat and it's going to break down eventually. Microorganisms are going to eat it. So I got no problem with keeping them on my block. Other examples are baby wipes, face wipes, dishcloths that are made from some kind of natural material. Could be cotton, hemp, wool. Same goes with blankets or clothing. If you buy natural materials, they can literally just be put in your compost and will break down. Another example is beeswax wraps. They're usually made from just reclaimed cotton, and the covering is beeswax, so you use them a lot. Sometimes the beeswax runs out a bit. You can either refresh them by adding more beeswax, or if it's really looking a bit manky, chuck it in the compost. So all of these are absolutely ideal examples of the most easily recycled products you can choose. Now the next level is products that are made from one material and there's easy access to a waste stream. So this is the things we typically put in our recycling bins: plastic, glass, aluminium and steel. So they're not a bad option. You know, still second after things you can deal with at home, but at least you know that if you put them in the recycling stream, something will happen with them. Then the next choice, the third option, is something that is made from more than one material, but those do have easy to access waste streams and you can take them apart easily. So a good example is a yogurt container. You can take off every bit of the aluminium foil from the top, and of course you're going to put that into your little container where you're collecting all your little bits of foil. And at least in our council, all hard plastic can go in the recycling. That will depend on your council area. Another example of a product made from two fairly easily recycled materials is, say, a notebook with a spiral binder. So once I've finished a notebook like that, I'll rip all the pages out, and then that spiral thing is left. I put that in my metal recycling too. Another example is something like this file folder. It's all cardboard or paper, which I can put in my compost or in the recycle bin, and I'd probably be levering out the little metal thing too. I don't think that'd be too hard. Then the last category is things that are made from multiple materials, that are either, they could be easily recycled but you can't get them apart, or they could be materials that are just not easy to recycle. So these are things you would generally avoid, but the one exception is that there are programs, especially by TerraCycle, but sometimes by manufacturers as well, to take back their own products. So I'll give you some examples. This pen is an example of something that's really hard to recycle because it's got too many different materials in it. If you put it in, well, it's too small for plastic recycling, but say it was something bigger that had a lot of materials. Put it in plastic, it doesn't really fit because there's metal and there's springs and there's ink. If you put it in metal, it doesn't really fit because there's plastic. It's too hard to get all the bits apart. So it's not easily recycled, as opposed to the pens that I showed you earlier, which are just, most of it is cardboard or newspaper. But luckily for something like this, we have the TerraCycle programs. If you haven't heard me talking about TerraCycle before, they're an organisation. They're worldwide, I think, but we also have them in Australia, and they specialise in creating recycling opportunities for hard to recycle items. So they don't worry about, you know, recycling cans, because that's covered. Councils have got it, it's all set up. They look at things that are really tricky to recycle, and they work with manufacturers to try and create a recycling stream for that. So that's an example. Writing instruments is a TerraCycle recycling program. Another item that could be hard to recycle is a toothbrush, especially if it's an electric toothbrush, because then you've got some soft plastic, you've got hard plastic, a bit of what feels like silicon, and possibly electronics inside or a battery. So again, it doesn't really go anywhere. However, again, TerraCycle have a program for that. Batteries is a great example, because it's sort of obvious they're full of stuff that we don't want to handle, and there's not really anything you can do, but there is a good recycling service for it. And this is another example of something. It's one material, but the material is silicon, and there is no recycling, no easily accessible recycling stream for silicon. However, a greener who make this, it's a reusable lunch wrap or baking sheet, they have a take back program. So if it tears or whatever reason you don't want it anymore, you can send it back to them and they will make sure it's recycled. Polystyrene is another good example of it's just one material, but it's a material that, whilst it can be recycled, it's very tricky. I looked it up in Melbourne the other day, and there are places you can take just household amounts of polystyrene, but none of them are close to me, that's for sure. And for most people, it's not really going to be an option. So hopefully that's helped you understand what to look for when you're trying to work out what's going to be the most recyclable item. And one of the key things really is how many different components does it have, and that's going to make it really tricky unless there's some sort of program that's built especially for it. As always, ask me questions and I'll try and answer them. Thank you.